Order. We have one item on the agenda. The Mature Adult Business Plan Report. Terry?
Thank you, Council President, and thank you for having us here. I'm Terry Higashiyama, Administrator for the Community Services Department. We appreciate the time that we can spend with you this evening to talk about how our community continues to change. Now, I'm not looking at anyone directly when I talk about that we're all getting older. So it's sort of like I want to make sure that I'm in that bracket and that we're understanding how everyone feels a part of Renton. 1 in 3 Americans is now 50 years of age or older. By 2030, 1 out of every 5 people in the United States will be 65 plus. Now, that's a wonderful thing. That's a wonderful knowledge, that's a wonderful experience, that's a wonderful community. But we wanted to make sure we were connected with that community and we knew what they were going to expect and how we make people feel valued in our community. So I want to compliment the staff who have just done an amazing job. Chris Stimson, the Recreation Director, Debbie Little, Recreation Coordinator, and Sean Daly, Recreation Supervisor, and they're going to introduce the rest of their team. But I just want to say that when you go on this type of journey, sometimes it's difficult because you're looking at new ways to do business and new ways to connect with people that we work with every day. And they stepped out of their comfort zone and really said, what is it going to be in the years to come to make sure that Renton's a valuable place and we really have a place for those that are aging and want to stay here and be part of our community. So I will turn it over to Chris and the team, and I'm sure you'll enjoy what they have to share tonight.
Thank you, Terry. Good evening, everyone. First, I'd like to introduce 2 very special people here. They were both on the original planning committee of the Senior Business Plan or the Mature Business Plan. We didn't come up with a probably good name, I guess. But so we have Lynn Bohart from the Community Foundation and Shelley Thompson from the Merrill Gardens General Manager. Right. Thank you very much. So they spent an inordinate amount of time at meetings, very dry meetings, long meetings, afternoon meetings, morning meetings, and also help us when we went out with the community. So before we start into our PowerPoint, I was doing some reading this weekend, sort of just to prep, and I went across some information. At what age do people think that someone is old? So if you're in your 40s, you think that someone is old when they're 63. People in their 50s felt that people when they're 68, they're old. People in their 60s said 73. And people in their 70s said 75 was old. I thought that was very interesting.
I have to make an editorial comment. My wife, who is 50 years old, we go to the community center and exercise, and she says, "Man, we got to get there before the old people get there." I look at her and I say, "We are."
All a state of mind.
It's a state of mind.
So, the first question we had is why did we go down this path? And why did we decide to have a senior business plan? It took us a long time, a lot longer than we thought. It took us over a year, right? But we wanted to have a direction or a path for the city. Where do we want to go in 5 to 10 years? Now, remember, it's not just about the senior center. It's about the seniors within the city. Just not about Sean and Debbie, so remember that. But we wanted to see a direction because we know the city can't solve all the problems. We need to have partners, and we'll talk about that later. But we just really wanted to sort of have a blueprint, and we hired a consultant to help us, guide us, and get us there. So this is a list of what we had on the planning committee, and Lynn and Shelley here. These are the other folks, Jim, and Susan has moved on. She now works for the Alzheimer's Association. And then you can see the staff that also helped out. So this is the stakeholder focus groups. So what we did, we split it up and we identified some folks in the community groups and outside the community too. And that was one of the best parts about the process, was just meeting all kinds of different people in the community and out of the community. I took the Alzheimer's group, it's not on this list, but in Seattle. And that was just so enlightening about what they do. And they'll come out to the community. They'd like to come out and get out of their hub. So that was very interesting. So the process, like I said, it took us a year. We had lots of meetings. We also had individual stakeholders meetings. And we worked with a consultant. We had a lot of paper, a lot of notes, a lot of trends, where we're going. And these two are going to take over the next piece.
There it is. I'm responsible for the trends. And the trends really weren't a big surprise to Debbie or myself, I think, as a general rule. The first one we've got up is that, actually, there we go. Our senior population is growing by leaps and bounds. The interesting thing I saw here was the over 85 has more than tripled since 1990. And I think the older adults, the 70, 80 plus, are the ones that really are utilizing a lot of our services, especially at the senior center. So with the increase in that, it's going to be quite a demand on our services. One of the keys to this is going to be how are we going to meet the needs of the growing population? And I think that's where we're going to have to really rely on partnerships and sponsorships. The senior center, the city of Renton, we can't do it all for everyone. And I think we're going to really have our hands full. I think that's one of the things that came out of this study for us, is that we're never going to be out of work. It's going to be a growing population, and they're going to need more and more services. So the senior population, like I said, is no different in Renton from the rest of the country. The senior population is growing quite a bit. As Terry mentioned, I think 1 in 4 are over 55 in Renton right now. The population of older adults of Renton is increasing in ethnic and cultural diversity. Again, this is something we really see firsthand, especially at the senior center. Things have changed tremendously for us in the area of ethnic and cultural diversity. It's something that has, especially I've noticed, and I think Debbie has too, the last 5 years, quite a change. So you can look at the graph there and see that. One of the things we're going to need to do is identify new services, how we can meet the needs of some of these diverse communities. The other thing is, how can we go out and go to where they're at, rather than expect them to come to us? That hasn't really worked to date. So I think one of the things we've talked a little bit about, and it comes out in the study, is doing like satellite senior centers or satellite stations where we can actually provide services outside the senior center. The other thing we talked about just prior to this meeting, and it came out in the study, is the idea of one-stop shopping, where you put together maybe like the Landing, where you've got 4 or 5 different services for food stamps, for housing, that kind of thing, where they don't have to take a bus, and we'll talk about transportation a little bit, but trying to get everything sort of coordinated together. So I think that's going to be really important. Trends. You know, the number one trend that came out of this whole study, I think it came out in every single focus group that we were involved with, is transportation. It's sort of something that sometimes we forget about, especially as staff, but for the senior people, it's essential. And I think that's something that we really need to look at, how we're going to fund it, what we're going to do, how we're going to do it. Right now, we've got a really good situation for the senior center in that we have a agency through Metro called the Hyde Shuttle that really has helped us out. It brings people door to door. There's no qualifications. There's no signups in advance. It's been a tremendous service, but we need more of that. You know, that's just sort of the tip of the iceberg. So we've actually got 2 vans assigned to Renton right now, but that's an idea that I think we're really going to need to pursue, is how we can get people to where they want to go, medical appointments, those kind of things. So that's going to be really something that's going to
We've got a question. Councilmember Palmer?
Metro pays for that service, right?
yes.
And then the riders don't have to pay.
That's correct. The Hyde Shuttle is, they take a donation for people that want to donate, but there's absolutely no charge on that service. And Marcy, the good thing is that, again, they don't have to qualify. All you have to do is call. They don't ask about your economic situation. There's absolutely nothing to do other than just call and reserve a ride, which is really different from the Access program, if you're
Yes.
familiar with that.
Yes.
So,
Because I had a neighbor who they refused to come to where she was. They said it's just too inconvenient for us. And so I had told her about this, that would be much better, because she was used to going there. And when she got so she couldn't walk up to get a bus, she really missed it a lot.
yeah, it's a vital thing. And like I said, transportation came out really on top of everything that we heard from our focus groups. It was consistent too. Let's go here. Preventing older adult isolation is a priority. You know, that's, sometimes we forget about that, about some of the people in the community. When I was growing up, just a few years ago, when I was younger, Debbie, you know, we looked after our neighbors. I mean, part of the deal was where I lived in Kennydale, I had senior neighbors on both sides of me. We knew where they were at every day. If they weren't home, what was the deal? That's gone away. And so what's happened is the older adults are sort of on their own in a sense. And I think that's a big concern for us. So we need to figure out really how we're gonna prevent that isolation. And we've got some ideas. There's some things we can do that maybe do a better job of, but it's something that we don't want to forget. We don't want to forget about the people that really need us, and that can be the people that are isolated. One of the things I've learned at the senior center is, you know, as you get older, you have a lot of different issues, but the socialization part can be the most, the toughest thing to deal with. When you're home alone without anyone to talk to, that's the real value of the senior center. It's not the classes and the activities, but just the ability to come down to the senior center and converse with someone. So that's really important. Cultural shifts will change demands for services. This is something that, one of the things we really did learn on this is we get a lot of the baby boomers now.
I like you got a picture of Dawn in action there.
That is Dawn, actually. Yeah. That was Dawn. Yeah.
And his Dr. Dre headphones on.
There they are.
You know, the first thing with the baby boomers is that it's going to definitely increase the need for services on our end. They demand services that align to their values, and their values are really individual choice, health, and wellness. And so we need to remember that. They prefer to age alone. That's why we've got the picture of the house on there, is that we find more and more of the senior people want to stay in their own homes. They don't necessarily, as much as we might want to travel to different parts of the country for 6 months of the year, what we're finding is just sort of the opposite. People want to stay here in Renton. And that is a trend. They want to age in place. So, what did we learn? You know, the biggest thing we learned is, and I think it's a tribute to everyone that works in Renton, lives in Renton, Renton is really a caring community. I mean, that's easy for me to say, but it came out just about in every one of our focus groups, how much people enjoy living in Renton, how much they like what we provide for them, the park systems, the recreation, just everything. The interesting thought that came out was, and this happened to me in 3 different focus groups, what a great place to raise a family Renton is. And, you know, that hit home with me because I'm a Renton resident from day one. I was born here in Renton, and I couldn't agree more. And I think that was something that people recognize. I know you can't keep people happy all the time with everything that goes on, but I think everyone knows that Renton is really a special place and really a caring community. The second part of that is the older adult population in Renton is growing. We talked about that. Transportation being the major challenge for many older adults. Disparity of wealth has increased. What we've seen in the study, and it was a little bit surprising, is that, you know, you've got a fairly high number of low-income people, but you've got a fairly high number of people that are fairly well off. And the medium-income people, there's not nearly as many today as there was years ago. So, you know, one of the things we need to look at, I think, is we need to really provide for the low income. We need to provide for everyone, but we need to make a special emphasis to keep our costs down at the senior center so people can afford to participate in our programs. If we start going for the revenue reasons of trying to make money, we're going to lose firsthand. We know this for a fact. We're going to lose the people that need us most. So one of the things we've tried to do at the senior center is really keep the costs down, provide free events. We've got free classes, we've got free special events, that kind of thing. And I can tell you firsthand, whenever we do something free, it's very well attended. And that's good. That's a good thing. So I think that's something we need to remember. Need to increase awareness of offerings and services. I think that hit home with us a little bit because some of the things that came out in our focus groups are things we already do now. There was a couple different focus groups that mentioned we need a computer room. Well, you know, we've actually got a computer room. In fact, thanks to Mural Gardens, we were able to, this is probably 7 or 8 years ago, they helped fund a computer room for us at the senior center. Now, since then, the city's taken it over with new computers, but we've got a 12-station computer room right at the senior center. And we've got labs and classes, and it's very well attended. But that's an example of the public not knowing what we have. So we do need to do a little bit better job, I think, of promoting what we have. So anyhow, that's all I've got at this point. I'm going to turn it over to Debbie Little.
The goals of the plan. As you read through these are very lofty goals. And again, this is a community plan, not just a senior center, not just a city of Renton government plan. It involves the whole community. So we're aware of that, but these are definitely things that we will be working towards. And the strategies of the plan. I think one of my favorite ones, or that I'm most excited about, is the improved departmental coordination to better meet older adult needs. This ties right in with the Human Services strategic plan that is going on and into the comprehensive plan. So one of the ways I think we will drive us is through the neighborhood programs too, and tying into people that are left out, the isolation, and involving the neighborhoods and identifying people that maybe are isolated and reaching out to them. So again, these are lofty as well, but we can do it. Now getting into the fun part, our action plan. We met with these focus groups and literally we asked them about 6 or 7 questions. They were all the same questions, so we took their feedback, a lot of them on gaps of services, what they want to see in the future, long-term planning, long-term goals, short-term goals. So in this action plan, older adults are remaining in the workforce longer. I think we're all aware of that. They're not retiring at the age in which they used to, which means they're not able to use the senior center. Okay, we're open 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. So what we did in October of 2014, we opened up and extended our hours on Wednesdays. And that has been we've kind of, we're looking at the age group a little bit wider than 50 and above. We're looking at even 40, 45, those that are going to be planning on their retirement, getting them used to the senior center, walking in those doors, and not being, I'm too young, I can't come here. You know, getting them familiar with what we are offering there. Again, transportation, we say this over and over again because it is one of our major issues. This is a lovely photo of a replica of our van that we just took possession of last week, and it will help with our trips and tours. We have a quite extensive wait list when we go on trips and tours, so this will help. We have 14 passenger vans. This is a 15 passenger van as well, and will help get people going different places. So we're very excited about that. It hasn't been put into the system yet, but it should be this week, so we're pretty excited about that. Diversity in Renton is growing. We all know that. What we're doing to accomplish this goal is we're offering Spanish classes we're actually in computer classes for Spanish speaking only. And we are also offering Spanish speaking classes for non-Spanish speaking. So those people that want to learn a different language, converse with another culture. So those are two things that we're doing now to address that. And building partnerships. We do quite a bit with Merrill Gardens. Thank you, Shelley. And they sponsor many of our special events. We work with the Lake Shore as well. We work with Evergreen Place, the Chateau. And these are people and institutions that are serving the same people we are, the same population that we are. So we can't do it all. None of us can do it all. So working with like services and like providers to address those services. We are reaching out into the community for more exposure. We have an advisory committee, and they've been wonderful about going out into the community. They have been at the farmers market a couple times last year. They'll continue to do it this year. We've participated in health fairs at other sites, and just getting the word out. Like Sean said, at the senior center, we offer a lot of activities, but not everyone is aware of that. So we really do need to do a better job in increasing our exposure. Thank you.
Chris?
Thank you, staff. One thing I might not have mentioned that under Terry's leadership, we really enjoyed working together, the committee work, and we just had a great time. So it was a really wonderful opportunity. Even if the plan was terrible, I think we really had a great time. So we did enjoy ourselves, yes. So one of the articles I was reading about, I'm just going to read a paragraph to you, and I think it sort of sums up a little bit where we are before I get onto the last slide. But this was from the Advisory Council on Aging and Disability Services, and talks about the trend of getting older. But King County's elder population, age 60 plus, will near 25% of the total population by 2035. Since 1995, the number of residents 85 and older has almost doubled, and by 2035 will almost quadruple. As the baby boomer generation ages, as older immigrants arrive in our region, and as improved health and health care contributes to greater longevity, we hope that Renton is considering the impacts of the age wave on accessible communities, transportation, low-income senior housing, and demand for services. Our data indicates that the older populations living in South and East King County are growing the most rapidly. This age wave presents both challenges and opportunities for suburban and rural cities. For example, the transportation systems may be difficult for older adults to navigate safely and conveniently. However, older adults are a tremendous resource, and have much to contribute to their communities. Cities that plan for and design safe and accessible communities that support people of all ages and all abilities will be well-positioned to benefit from these contributions. And I think that really sums up what we're trying to do by this plan. So our last slide, we wanted to make sure as staff that you also learned what was pointed out in every group, every interview, every meeting we had, was just all of the assets. And they really felt that the leadership, which would be you folks, was really supportive, and we want you to know that. So it may not be in every community, but it definitely is in ours, and it was really pointed out every meeting. So before, if you have any questions, I have one trivia question for you. Debbie had a slide that had pickleball, and we started pickleball Wednesdays at the senior center in the evening, and we've had a nice group of people. So does anybody know where pickleball came from?
Or what it is.
Okay, what it is. Okay, so pickleball, Debbie, why don't you tell me what pickleball is?
Pickleball is kind of a larger table tennis. So you have a net, and we're actually, if you can picture the senior center, picture the auditorium. And the lights are hanging low, but we mapped out this court, and so we play pickleball from 5:30 to 7:30, and it's like a table tennis, so you've got a wiffle ball and a paddle, and we actually have enough people where we play doubles.
So pickleball is the recreational trend of the future for seniors. If you're ever in Palm Springs, you'll see a lot of tennis courts that are being redone and have lines with pickleball because it's just easier on your knees, and but it's a great sport. But the trivia part is it was made up or designed or discovered by Congressman Joel Pritchard in 1965, and it was named after his dog Pickles. So if you learned anything tonight, you learned that. Do you have any questions?
Any questions from council? All right, thank you guys.
Thank you very much for your time.
And this committee of the whole is now adjourned.